Alright, I am back with another video, and today we've got an interesting build. I wanted to make another Death Cleric build, because I haven't made very many of them since the new subclasses came out in patch 8, and I wanted to give it a try, but I wasn't really sure how to kind of make it interesting, because I feel like a lot of the kind of Death Cleric concepts have kind of already been done. However, I decided to look at it from a more mechanical perspective, and I actually found a very interesting combination that I'm surprised I didn't think of sooner, but actually leads to a really fun character that has an interesting playstyle, a big opening round of kind of damage, which can be very, very devastating if done correctly, as well as just combining two flavorful elements of two different classes, but I think it's just going to work really, really well. We're going to be kind of making a stealthy, kind of clerical assassin character, who's able to strike from the shadows hard and fast using the Death Cleric's natural abilities to be able to output massive amounts of damage, while also having a somewhat unique playstyle in comparison to, say, maybe your standard cleric or even your standard rogue. And I think you guys are actually going to find this one pretty goddamn interesting, as it requires a slightly different approach to combat. You definitely have to play into the assassin's kind of opening round of like big Nova damage, but if you can do it correctly, it just feels so satisfying to use. A really good kind of character build for just something, for just the, you know, the stealthy rogue in your party. It can work for a lot of people, but I just liked the idea of this like kind of cleric assassin, so I really, really wanted to play into it. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think you'll find this one to be an interesting blend of mechanics, so let's get into the build. Kicking things off, it doesn't really matter what you decide to play for this build. You can play any race or species, it doesn't really matter. I went with Drow today just because I haven't built a proper Drow in a while, so I felt like I would. And I went for Lolsworn Drow just because we are going down the clerical route. I thought it might be interesting to play with one of the deities that we never usually get to play with, unless you are a Drow, so, you know, it's not really meant to be any sort of theme. Again, you can pick whatever you like for this build, but, you know, why not, right? We're going to be kicking things off as a rogue. I always like to, whenever I make rogue part of my builds, unless I need something like constitution saving throw proficiency, I like to start with rogue to give us the extra skills. Because again, if you're going to be playing this character as your Tav or your Dark Urge, and I actually do kind of recommend you play this build as Dark Urge, it's not required, but we'll get into that more in a bit. Basically, you will kind of want to start with these like extra skill proficiencies and such like that to make you a better party face and overall just better party leader, so I feel like starting off with rogue makes sense. You're going to get obviously your sneak attack, you're going to get your simple weapons and hand crossbows and such like that. We're going to be using, I believe, short swords for this build, so that's the only weapon proficiency we really need, and we only need light armor for this build, so overall it's going to work out pretty goddamn nicely. We are going to take the criminal background to start. This is just so we can get those extra skill proficiencies and we don't need to take them as a rogue. So that just gives us a bit of a way to diversify our moveset. But honestly, any background works. You can pick your favorite here. Now, as for the ability scores, we're going to be building a pretty standard rogue for the most part, with the exchange of something maybe like charisma or intelligence for more wisdom. Strength is at 8, unfortunately we don't need it. Dexterity is at 16, it is going to be our main attacking modifier. Constitution is at 14, we're not looking to take too many hits with this build, but 14 should do us just fine. Intelligence is at 8, unfortunately we just don't need it on this build and I need to dump 2 stats to make this build work. Wisdom is at 16, obviously if we're going to be playing a cleric, we are going to need that for our spellcasting ability modifier. And then finally, charisma to make us good at being the face of the party, because rogue just makes even a 12 in charisma work really, really well. Speaking of our skill proficiencies, here they are, and it's entirely up to you kind of what you want to pick for this build. As I said, we already get stealth and deception from our criminal background. We already get perception because we're one of the elven races, which means we get 4 skill proficiencies and 2 expertise to put into pretty much whatever we want. And I'll be honest, I definitely think you should take stealth expertise. I think that's just kind of a necessity for the build. I think it just makes the build so much stronger and being able to get the jump on your enemies. But then really, it's entirely up to you where you want to go from there. You can put your expertise into sleight of hand like I have, or you could put it into any of the social skills that you want. And I would say you could probably take off performance. I don't think we need performance here. I quite like insight a little bit more here, or maybe even acrobatics if you're worried about being shoved. Honestly, it's entirely up to you what you want to pick here. But I feel like this is a very strong core to start with, and is what I would personally recommend. Alright, at level 2, I think we do want to jump straight into taking a dip of Cleric, just to start to get some of our subclasses and our lore-based dialogue and such like that, because, you know, when you have a Cleric domain, you immediately get, like, you know, new dialogue options and such like that, and I think that'll be a great thing to get right off the bat. This is kind of similar to when we used to do the deity build series, it's just not quite so restrictive this time. But anyways, we do get to grab our first level of Cleric here, giving us a bunch of things. Namely, we're going to gain access to 3 cantrips, and honestly, we're just going to take the social cantrips here. I don't really have an interest in using our either Sacred Flame or Produce Flame here, so we're just going to be grabbing Resistance, Guidance, and Thaumaturgy to give us a bit of a better shot at passing a bunch of skill checks, which again is great for a rogue. Our subclass is obviously going to be Death Domain, giving us access to a few really unique things. First off, we're going to get one of the most important features for this build. Reaper. The necromancy cantrips that target one creature can target an additional creature. This is already really strong. You're getting a 2-for-1 deal out of any cantrip that you cast that is necromancy based, which we're going to get 2 of. One is a save and one is an attack roll. So either way, you're going to have a pretty decent chance of being able to get off 2 attacks pretty damn quickly. But when you see how well this synergizes with some features we're going to be getting in a little bit, you're going to see how quickly this playstyle can really take off, even in the early game, to really help you deal out some massive damage and take out enemies quite quickly. Of course, we're also going to gain access to new domain spells, that being False Life for a bit of extra tankiness, and Ray of Sickness for an extra damaging spell, I should say. Now, we get to choose a necromancy cantrip. I would say you're going to want to pick either Toll the Dead or Bone Chill. I recommend grabbing Bone Chill first, as I do think the attack roll is a little bit better. Because I think in the early game, like we all know, the pain of Sacred Flame, Toll the Dead kind of has a similar issue, with it being a wisdom save. So I would definitely say Bone Chill is definitely the better way to go in the early game, in my opinion, but if you feel like Toll the Dead is going to work better for you, you can take that. It doesn't really matter if you take Toll the Dead or Bone Chill in whatever order, just make sure you grab both, so you have access to both. Our deity is Lolth, because obviously we can't change that, because we are a Lolth-Sworn Drow in this build, but again, you can pick whoever when you actually get the chance to try this build out for yourself. We're also going to get 2 more skill proficiencies, and the game has already chosen Religion and Medicine for us, which I'm pretty inclined to say is what I would go with here. I don't think we really need History too much, so I quite like having these 2. And finally, our prepared spells. We have a few to pick from. Obviously, Sanctuary. We are going to be a little bit squishy with this build, so it's nice to just have basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, so we don't have to worry about taking big hits if we don't want to. You're also going to want Guiding Bolt, because it's a ranged damage attack that deals radiant damage, which is always nice to have, but it makes it so the next attack roll against the target will have advantage, which means you can set yourself up for a sneak attack really goddamn easy, so I highly recommend picking this one up. For your next 2, it's entirely up to you really what you want to go for. We can keep with the necrotic theming and go for Inflict Wounds just for a big necrotic damage attack at close range, as well as a quick bonus action heal through Healing Word, just to give yourself a little bit of a pop-up if you need it. Now, with that level of Cleric out of the way, I actually do want to dip back to Rogue for the next few levels, as I want to start building up that kit. We're going to get our Cunning actions at this level, giving us access to the ability to hide, dash, and disengage as a bonus action. All of these we're pretty much going to be using throughout this build, so make sure you remember you have them, because sometimes even I forget. We also gain access to Fairy Fire if you do go over Drow, which of course can give attack rolls advantage, which means more sneak attacks. Very nice. At Rogue level 3, we get to pick our subclass, and you probably already know what I'm going for here. We're going with Assassin. Now, Assassin does a lot for Death Cleric, even more so than I originally realized, because of these 3 features right here. First up is Assassinate Initiative. You are the deadliest against unprepared enemies. In combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. This is meant to be used with sneak attack, but it can actually make our chance to hit with something like Bone Chill really damn high. It's also going to give us access to Assassinate Ambush. Any successful attack roll against a surprised creature is a critical hit. Now, any successful attack roll does not specify with a weapon, which means that our cantrips work with this. So by taking Bone Chill as early as we can, you can make a Reaper attack, attacking 2 enemies with Bone Chill, getting guaranteed critical hits with advantage on the roll. Then, because of Assassin's Alacrity, which immediately restores your action and bonus action at the start of combat, you already have a surprise round. That means you get 4 attacks worth of guaranteed crits at the start of combat. That's pretty damn strong, if I do say so myself. In my testing, I was able to look at this and I immediately just deleted two of the characters in the combat encounter right off the bat, which just felt so goddamn satisfying with a cantrip. And because our cantrips scale with our overall level, not our class level, multiclassing isn't going to hurt that, so we are just able to do massive amounts of damage in the late game with our cantrips. But now, even so, in the early game, potentially being able to hit 2 enemies twice in the start of combat, you could easily take out a couple of goblins in the goblin camp, you know, a couple of minions in, you know, Ethel's Grove and stuff like that. Like, it really does fit nicely. And of course you can still play the classic assassin route, you're still getting all the good rogue stuff that lets you be sneaky, so really just go for what you like here. It really does work. But having that just big opening round where you can cast those cantrips and just start off really, really strong just feels amazing. So I highly, highly recommend this. And then finally, at Rogue level 4, we are total level 5, giving us access to the Darkness spell, which we're probably not going to use too much in this build. Again, it's not required to play this race, so it's entirely up to you if you want to bother with that. But now we do get to choose our first feat of the build, and I do think we are going to need to go for an ability score improvement here. The question is into what? Because really we kind of need both at this level. Because obviously Wisdom is going to affect our chance to hit with our cantrips, and although we are going to have advantage pretty much when we're going to be getting the primary use out of them, we still want to make sure we have the highest chance to hit possible. But then again, we do also want dexterity because we've mostly taken rogue levels at this point, which means we do want our dagger attacks to be pretty damn solid. So really, you're going to have to gauge, are your cantrips still reliably hitting with 16 Wisdom? If so, maybe bump up that dex. If you feel like you're not using your melee attacks so much and focusing more on casting, bump up your Wisdom. Honestly, you're just going to have to play it the way you think it should work. It's entirely up to you. I think that if you play this character right, you're probably going to be casting cantrips more often than you're going to be running straight into melee. So I actually do think bumping up your Wisdom here would make sense, but again, it's entirely dependent on your playstyle. We'll get the opportunity to bump the other one up as well. Now, I would say at this point we're pretty much done with Rogue. I want to focus more on getting a lot of the Death Cleric features that are really going to help out this build. So we're going to jump back over to that, and immediately we're going to get another really good one. That being Touch of Death. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal extra necrotic damage. I believe by the time we get to the end of this build, it's like 2d12, which is pretty damn strong. So you can combine that with a sneak attack if you manage to get in, go for a sneak attack, hit for a big number, add Touch of Death on top of it. Ooh boy. That's a lot of damage, and it goes really, really nicely, especially if you're able to land a critical hit, which you can guaranteed at the start of combat. It's very, very, very powerful. You just get a massive amount of damage, which is probably also going to kill someone. So you have so many ways of approaching just like using the Death Cleric abilities to just straight up assassinate people. Very, very fun. I love Touch of Death here. Now, we do get to prepare some more spells, which I do have to reorganize my spell list because this game hates me, even after all these years. So with that, you can kind of pick whatever you want at this level. I always like Command. It's a very, very powerful spell. And Shield of Faith could be a good, like, kind of drop it and forget it type thing to just make you a bit more nimble. But honestly, pick whatever. At Cleric level 3, we're going to gain access to level 2 spells, and at this point we get access to Blindness, which I absolutely love this spell, I think it's quite fun, as well as Ray of Enfeeblement. I don't see you using Ray of Enfeeblement too much, but Blindness is definitely a good pick. I would also say, because we have access to level 2 spells at this point, you're going to want to grab Aid and Hold Person, both of which are absolutely stellar for this build. Aid is just going to give you more tankiness. You and your whole team, nothing wrong there. You just want to have a little bit more HP, so again, we're not quite so squishy if we do get hit. And then Hold Person, I mean, do I even need to say more? Drop down your concentration, and then you're just going to be able to gain guaranteed critical hits, which of course can work with things like Touch of Death, our sneak attack, everything. Like, this can just be really powerful if you just need one humanoid dead, which sometimes you really, really do. At Cleric level 4, we're going to gain access to our next cantrip, Take Toll the Dead, in case you do need to use the saving throw instead of an attack roll. But honestly, you're always going to be using Bone Chill, because that's what synergizes with our abilities. We get to prepare another spell at this level, and I really like Spiritual Weapon for this build, because this is the 2014 version, does not require concentration, it's a bit of extra force damage every turn. It's really nice for just to help with your overall DPS, and yeah, it just fits the build kind of nicely. I like the idea of having kind of a spiritual weapon that we use to assassinate people. I don't know, I just think it's fun. But then we also do get to get another ability score improvement at this level, in which case, feel free to take a bump to your dexterity. At Cleric level 5, we gain access to level 3 spells, including Animate Dead, which is always fun to have, as well as Vampiric Touch as a bit of a healing/damage spell. It's a life siphon spell. Very fun. We also do get to pick some other spells from the level 3 spell list, and of course we're going to be going with Spirit Guardians. I mean, come on. We get to surround ourselves in a necrotic aura. Like, that just makes too much sense for this build. Dodging in and out using disengage and like dash and such like that from our roguish abilities, being able to run in and out, proccing the damage multiple times, and then, you know, across multiple different enemies without having to worry about opportunity attacks. And then just, like, you know, being able to slink off into the shadows. You're not really going to be able to hide so well while you have Spirit Guardians up, but still, it's a great source of extra damage, especially when we have decent enough AC, that we should be dodging quite a lot, so we don't have to worry about dropping concentration nearly as much. At Cleric level 6, we're going to get another amazing feature for this build, Inescapable Destruction. Spells you cast will ignore resistance to necrotic damage. So now, even if we go against an enemy that is resistant to necrotic, we don't have to worry about it nearly as much. This is going to matter more if you're doing this level scheme in Act 3, where you do go against a few enemies that have resistance to necrotic damage. Don't get me wrong, this probably would be a lot more useful in Act 2, but I digress. It's still a nice feature to have, just as a backup plan, as it were. You also do gain another level 3 spell here, and honestly, it is kind of up to you what you want to take. We have kind of everything that I want from this level. Speak with Dead is always fun, like from a flavor perspective. Again, you're an assassin, you can kill people and then squeeze the information out of them that you need. Very fun flavor. Mass Healing Word if you just need a quick party-wide heal. Glyph of Warding if you want to set up traps for your opponents, which you can use to then assassinate them with ease, because there is like kind of like a sleep trap and such like that. That's probably going to be my pick, because I just love Glyph of Warding, but really, you can take anything at this level. At Cleric level 7, you're going to gain access to level 4 spells, including Blight and Death Ward. Blight is just a big necrotic damage spell, dealing 8d8 necrotic, which is always nice to have. And Death Ward, well, I feel like it makes sense for someone who deals with so much death to be able to ward it off themselves. But as for your level 4 spells, there's honestly not too much I desperately want here, but I do like taking Freedom of Movement for just a cast it and forget it type of buff. That's going to make it so you can't be stunned, difficult terrain won't slow you down, and you cannot be magically paralyzed or restrained. It just helps out with a lot of gaff that can happen in combat encounters, so I quite like to pick it up. Again, you cast it and you forget it. And finally, we reach level 8 of Cleric, the final level of the build, giving us access to Divine Strike Necrotic. Even if we're out of Channel Divinity, Divine Strike Necrotic is just going to allow us to add even more necrotic damage onto our attacks, an extra d8. This can stack with our sneak attack, just meaning that we're going to be able to hit for massive amounts of necrotic damage every turn without having to spend any resources to do so. It's just an amazing little feature that is a perfect capstone for this build. And we do get to pick another feat at this point, and again, at this point, it's up to you. All of our stats are pretty much where I would want them, so you can pop these extra 2 points into anything if you like. But something like Athlete could be nice if you want to maybe get a bit more of a jump distance. If you maybe want to use ranged weapons on this build, which I actually don't, because I wanted to focus more on the actual spell casting side of things. You can grab something like Sharpshooter. I guess Dual Wielder, if you want to dual wield things that aren't light, could also work, but remember we don't have the 2-weapon fighting style, so it might not be as valuable, but that extra AC could never hurt. There's so many things. Lucky, always a great option. You could go for one of the magic initiates if you want. Mobile for extra speed is always nice. That could actually be really useful. Honestly, Savage Attacker to up our melee weapon damage. Spell Sniper could also be really good, actually. You could basically learn a cantrip and get a higher chance to crit off of it on subsequent turns. Pick up Eldritch Blast if you want something that has a bit more like range to it, although with our Reaper feature we kind of have like a necrotic Eldritch Blast. So really, it's entirely up to you. Warcaster giving you advantage on concentration saving throws could actually be really, really nice as well. Tough for extra HP, bringing us up to 111, which can make you way better at being able to go straight into combat. Like, this is a free feat. Take whatever you like. We have everything that the build needs already. Although, to be honest, I think I'm leaning more towards Warcaster now when I think about it. Giving us advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration on a spell could be very, very nice. But then again, I do like having higher dexterity for better melee weapon attacks, better AC. I think I used a full dexterity cap in my actual testing, so that's what I'll go with here. But really, pick your favorite. There's so much to go with here that all works for this build. And that is the build. What you're going to be getting out of this is a damn good burst damage character. You're going to have access to massive amounts of necrotic damage at the early stages of combat. You're going to be able to set up really well because you're going to be high up in the initiative order. Being able to basically take out or very much gravely wound multiple enemies at the very start of an encounter is going to be extremely helpful. You'll actually be a pretty powerful team player in that regard. And you'll be able to consistently dole out damage by using Reaper multiple times each turn, being able to go in for sneak attacks, back out, Spirit Guardians, the whole 9 yards. You just have so many different ways of dealing massive amounts of damage, but you're just going to be great at just taking out targets one by one while your party is able to sustain the encounter through either tanking or support or whatever. And you do have a little bit of support built into you, obviously, with the nature of being a cleric. You can kind of build the cleric side of things how you like, depending on like what you want to do. But otherwise, yeah, no, you've got a pretty solid kit here. The blend of Assassin, Rogue, and the Reaper feature, as well as Touch of Death and all that sort of thing, it just feels so good. Death Domain and Assassin were honestly kind of made for each other, which fits. So, let's talk about the equipment to see exactly how we can make this even better. So, I'm obviously not using any specific ranged weapon here, but of course, if you want to, you absolutely can. Does not matter. Pick whatever you like there. But for our melee weapons, again, you're going to want to be dual wielding with this build, so whether you pick up daggers or short swords or scimitars or whatever have you, it doesn't really matter. Just pick up whatever works for you. But I decided to choose 2 thematic weapons that I really liked here. First up is the Sword of Life Stealing. On a critical hit, the target will take an extra 10 necrotic damage as long as it isn't a construct or undead, and you'll also gain 10 temporary hit points. So if you decide to open up combat with a critical hit melee attack, you will be able to kind of, deal a bit of damage, gain some temporary HP, just make yourself overall a bit more tanky and deal a bit more damage. In the offhand, we're going to have the Ambusher. You get a +1 bonus to initiative rolls and advantage on perception checks, which is great. And in combat, you'll deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. So overall, both of these just make our opening burst damage round with necrotic damage even bigger. So really just a great thing to have. I recommend both of these, but honestly, any weapon that you think would fit for this build can go here. These are just like thematic weapons that I don't really get to use very often. In the early game, though, you can pick up the Shah's Sting, which is also known as the Ritual Dagger of Shah in the game, which is basically just a dagger that comes in with a built-in extra bit of necrotic damage. So, yeah, if you can pick up the Ritual Dagger of Shah in Act 2, I believe it is, in the secret little temple in the Shadowlands, you'll have a pretty decent starting weapon that does extra necrotic damage. I say starting weapon, it's Act 2, but you know what I mean. Unfortunately, both of these, I think, are Act 3, so you will need to kind of play around for what weapons you want to use in the early game, but there's a lot of good options. Now, for our equipment, for the helm, again, it's kind of up to you what you want to pick here. I decided to go for sort of a mid-game overall good option, but any of the usual suspects for stealth builds will work here. But the Fistbreaker helm is a nice union between both of our subclasses. We get a +1 bonus to our spell save DC, which is nice for our cleric stuff, but we also get a +1 bonus to initiative rolls. Now, it's a little bit overkill at this point, I will admit, but we're basically guaranteeing that we're always going to go first in combat no matter what the situation, which is nice, but really, you can swap this out for anything you like. It's not really a concern. Now, this is just for if you decide to play a Dark Urge with this build. This is kind of what I recommend. This is the Deathstalker Mantle. Whenever you kill an enemy, you become invisible for 2 turns. This is just such an amazing ability that really helps us out over the course of a fight. Again, we can just start taking out people one by one, and then, be able to disengage for free, basically with invisibility, set up for our next big sneak attack with the invisibility, so we can basically disengage and move in for the next attack without really having to worry. It just helps the flow of combat a lot. So if you play a Dark Urge with this build, I highly recommend that you use this. Otherwise, though, if you're not playing a Dark Urge, swap it out for the Shadeslayer Cloak, giving you an extra chance to crit if you're hiding. But really, I kind of recommend this as a Dark Urge just for the Deathstalker Mantle alone, so that would be my pick. Speaking of the Dark Urge, the Balllist Armour. Whether you play as the Dark Urge or not, this should be your end game armor. Joining a League of Assassins towards the end would be kind of fun, so you should pick this up in Act 3. Enemies within 3 meters will become vulnerable to piercing damage unless they are immune to it, and you gain a +2 bonus to initiative rolls. Again, this is just already serving to help what we already have going on, but giving enemies vulnerability to piercing damage, plus the extra necrotic that we'll be doing that ignores their resistance, as well as just going for the big Nova damage with things like Touch of Death and all that. Yeah, you're going to kill most things really easily with this build. So yeah, the Ballast Armor absolutely ties things together in the late game. In the early game though, just use the Spider Silk Armor. I recommend this one quite a lot. Gives you a +1 bonus to stealth checks and advantage on con saving throw checks, so that can help with some early game concentration spells. For the gauntlets, this is a free slot. Pick whatever you like here, but a good solid option that will just help you throughout the whole game is the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets, giving all of your weapon attacks an additional 1d4 necrotic damage, which will ignore resistance thanks to our feature. This is kind of a basic option, but there wasn't really too many other things that I would say I wanted for this build, so just getting even more necrotic damage just felt nice. Again, we're going for big Nova damage. 1d4 is 1d4, that's more than 0. And then finally, for the boots, again, a pretty standard option here, but with Disintegrating Nightwalkers, just making it so you cannot be enwebbed, entangled, or ensnared, and cannot slip on grease or ice, and giving you an extra usage of Misty Step once per short rest, allowing you to get out of dodge if you really, really need to. It's just a great escape tool. I just think this is one of the best things for this build. I know it's the typical option that I pick quite a lot, but again, there weren't really any boots that I felt like fit this build more than these, so I went with that. For our accessories, though, the Amulet of the Devout is going to be one of the best things you can pick up. +2 bonus to our spell save DC is amazing, but gaining that extra usage of Channel Divinity is so nice. Being able to get off 3 touches of death is just so satisfying. I really, really like this. It just helps out the build so much. Speaking of helping out the build, the Killer's Sweetheart. Whenever we kill a creature, which we most likely will do within our first turn of combat, you will be able to bank an attack, basically bank an effect, a reaction, that you can use to gain a guaranteed critical hit whenever you want. Now, of course, a guaranteed critical hit, we can stack with Touch of Death or Divine Strike Necrotic, as well as our sneak attack, to go for a guaranteed Nova attack, which just feels amazing to use on like a big boss or something. So yeah, definitely recommend Killer's Sweetheart here. And finally, the Ring of Jumping. When I make Assassin's builds, I really like to think about maneuverability and like how you traverse the map, and the Ring of Jumping allowing you to basically get around the combat encounter really easily, being able to jump on rooftops or be able to, you know, jump away or into combat really, really easily. Feels nice. Again, you can pick anything for this slot, but the Ring of Jumping just gives you that little bit of extra versatility that you wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, that is the build. No modded clothing this time. Instead, I've just colored everything in black and jade green to give us this kind of dark assassin look with a bit of that necrotic green sprinkled in, which I really, really like. But yeah, I mean, that is the build. Nothing else much more to say here. It's just a really solid assassin build, playing off the idea that we can use the basically the assassin features to really bolster Death Cleric's abilities to go for massive amounts of damage in the early stages of the combat, and then be able to consistently deal more damage using our features to kind of gain advantage. You know, attack multiple enemies at once, go for big sneak attacks. And again, I did all of this solo. You will gain advantage much more consistently if you're in a party where you're able to flank people, and then, you know, you're just going to be doing massive amounts of damage. You are the quintessential assassin. You get in, you strike hard at weak points, you deal massive amounts of damage, and you get the hell out, letting your party members take on the brunt of what's going on. And yeah, surprisingly, very much a team player. I really, really like this build. It's just a big damage, and then it goes for big damage, and then it gets really good sustain damage, even without extra attack. Because we're dual wielding, even though we don't have 2-weapon fighting, even if you manage to get your offhand attack land, you are going to have massive amounts of damage dealt, because you can still do things like sneak attack if you get a crit, or you can do your necrotic strike as well, so you can cast a spell with your action, divine strike necrotic with a bonus action to still get really, really solid damage. Like, again, this is a little bit of a power buildy one, but I think it comes with enough fun, flavor, and intrigue that you can really make a solid playthrough out of it, so I highly, highly recommend this one. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.